This is Joe Pugh for IFLTV. We're at the Lowry. It's Friday of fight week, in between official and ceremonial weigh-ins. So we'll wait and see if everyone's weighed in fine. Kalle, Sauerland, how are you, mate?
Yeah, good to be in Manchester. Actually, this hotel's got a lot of memories. The David Hay fights up here. This was always our hotel. And then Groves Eubank up here as well. But we've done so many fights up in Manchester. The two Eubank fights, we weren't in this hotel, we were in a different hotel though. But Manchester is one of my favourite fight cities, if not my favourite one. Happy memories.
And kind of newly the 40th most powerful man in boxing, along with your brother.
Yeah, I don't really make much of those lists. I was 2 years ago, I was number 5 or 6, so 5 to 6, now I'm 40. Crikey, I must be doing something wrong, but no, I guess the Misfits thing doesn't help me there. But no, I don't know. I don't know who comes up with these lists. I think some of it they've got right and some of it they got very wrong. I mean, I don't.
Age at 49's mad. That is mad.
It's terrible. I'd argue that us at 40 is terrible as well. But you know, that's life. You know, is it going to change my life? No. I bet there's other people that I'd like to have seen on there. I mean, you know, like the head of Sky Sports, you know, Jonathan Licht is not on there. You know, that's a bit of a bizarre one. Other people at DAZN who make all the decisions. I saw Shay's on there. That's obviously deserved. But you know, you've got people like, you know, Ed McCarthy, Peter Oliver making the big calls day to day. You know, if that's a power list, you know, but the fighters, like. I think they've got the promoters right with Frank at the moment. Definitely deserves the top promoter spot. Undoubtedly, Turkey at number 1. No one's going to argue with that. But the list is a bit topsy-turvy. I'm not quite sure what they've done there, but it's all good. You know, maybe they'll recognise other things in the future. That's all good. I'll take the number 5. I'll take the number 40. You give me what you want. You're not going to affect my life too much. But there are some on there that I think are missing and some that are definitely in the wrong positions. But hey, that's what a list is there to do. It's there to create talking points and stuff like that. So I've talked about it now. Let's move on.
No, just one more thing on that, right? I'd love to do it. So like a sanctioning board convention where you invite all 50 and then you've got a lobby for your position. That would be interesting to be a fly on the wall in that.
I mean, I'm not going to do anyone else's. What would I say? What have I done in the last year? I don't know. Sold a shitload of pay-per-views and carried free-to-air boxing in the United Kingdom. And I've got, you know, Josh Kelly in the mandatory position. Abass Baraou won last weekend, obviously. You know, promoted some great fights. You know, signed Mick Conlon. Obviously, we got, you know, Harlem Eubank in the wings. You've got loads of kids coming through, you know. So it's exciting time. But it's for me again. I've been around this promotional game coming up to 30 years. So as I've said, you know, I'm not going to do too much lobbying. I'll concentrate on other things. But yeah, I'm blessed to be in the sport.
You mentioned free-to-air television there. What is it, 3.5, 4 years you've been with Channel 5 now?
Yeah, and you know, look, massive event next week with Mick Conlon. That's got me the hottest ticket in Dublin for sure. It's going to be an absolute electric atmosphere, live on Channel 5. You know, I think Bates and live opponent. You know, it's going to be a proper, dare I say, Ireland versus England fight night on Friday night. Don't forget Friday night, live and free on Channel 5. We've got some amazing entertainment on there as well. It's going to be such a great atmosphere. Really excited for that fight week, and there's going to be another big Channel 5 night probably in November. Yeah, guessing Harlem, but you know, we'll see. Harlem Progress. I quite fancy Harlem Regis Progress. I think that's a good fight to make right now for Harlem.
That's an unreal fight if you get that on Channel 5.
Yeah, and it's something that we'd like to do. There's one or two other names as well. You know, I'd like to go back to Brighton. I think that we're building that nicely up there. And at the same time, lots going on with Josh Kelly. Obviously, that mandatory position confirmed. We're in discussions. Quite a few different interesting ideas around when, where to stage it. You know, Mertazalia's with Kathy and Kathy Duva and Igis Klimas. Igis, obviously, I've worked with a lot when my time with Uzik, so know him well. You know, and obviously, you know, Adam, an integral part of it, and he certainly knows how to negotiate big fights. It was interesting, the Darren Ennis stuff.
Yeah, what did you make of that with Eddie?
I was a bit, you know, a bit disappointed that I wasn't there when, you know, they went head to head, because I felt a bit left out. Yeah.
You're friends with both, really, aren't you? So
we're all mates, but you know, it's business. All I can say is we accepted the offer, but I get their side. They're talking to 4 different people, and you know, they're going to go with probably with an economically best solution for it. And that certainly wasn't us, you know. But the purse that was agreed upon in the end to fight Boots was a good purse. Was it a great purse? No, wasn't a great purse, but it was a good purse. Was the first offer, you know, it was an opening offer. You know, that's all I'm going to call it. It was a negotiation. We were then also told that there would be an incoming better offer. That came. That was then accepted. And that's really the end of it. You know, they went with another option. And I'm not saying that, you know, Eddie, Boots, Ennis, whatever, who's scared of Josh Kelly. I'm not saying that for 1 minute. I'm just saying Josh Kelly accepted the fight. And not after it was announced, he sort of did one of those accepted. No, he accepted it, expecting to be fighting Boots Ennis, end of. Not really much more to be said on that. But, for, you know, everything, as George Groves once said, everything for a reason. And now we are fighting for the world title. So that could lead to a Boots Ennis fight anyways.
To be fair, if you want anyone having a war of words with Eddie Hearn, it'd be Adam Booth, wouldn't it?
Oh, he's very sharp on the tongue, you know. Very sharp on the tongue. Yeah, Eddie's good as well. You know, it was good to watch. Good TV. Was that IFL?
It was IFL, but there was a couple of others. I think they was just having a show.
Just making sure it was, you know.
It's always IFL, mate. Come on. Just on Channel 5.
Yeah.
You've now got a bit of competition in the terrestrial television market with Ben Shalom siding with BBC. What did you make of that?
Look, you know, I'm always for, always have been, the more broadcasters in boxing, the better it is for boxing. I think it would take a pillock to argue with me on that. What it actually is, we will see. I don't know what fighters it is. You know, there's talk of it's this fighter, that fighter. They haven't announced the shows yet. What I believe, what's sort of been half leaked, doesn't it? Is that it's, you know, two shows, two fight deal or something like that. And I guess they're going to have a look at it. You know, it's you know, what I will say is it's obviously at the beginning very different budgets than they're used to. So, you know, it's always a challenge. I see that with Channel 5. You know,
how difficult is it? Because you know,
it's tough, and you know, we invest, and we lose money often in the hope to make the money later on in their careers. You know, and you know, you've seen that with Channel 5. It's worked for so many fighters. It's a great platform to have great fights as well. I'm not saying that, you know, the rubbish fights are on Channel 5. Look at the fights that Channel 5 has broadcast in the last few years. There's Fight of the Year contenders on there, Round of the Year contenders on there. They're great fights that you can see. But you have to work with a budget that's very different. Now, again, I've been doing this coming up to 30 years, and I've worked with, you know, having had the luxury of probably the biggest budget in the world at the time to having smaller budgets, and you've got to make it work. We have always the vision that, you know, that there are, you know, there is a pay-per-view model out there in boxing, and you know, fans I think have grown to understand that certain fights need that pay-per-view model, or someone else fronting the money. You know, it's as simple as that, because, you know, you're not going to get free-to-air television pay $20 million for a fight. The only way of doing that is through a third party or a pay-per-view model. You know, that's as simple as that. So going back to it, I'm very excited to see what they muster up on BBC. And you know, again, brilliant news that the BBC is in one way, shape, or form putting its name in the same sentence as boxing. It's been many, many years. Most of you viewers won't remember Audley Harrison and that debacle. You're nodding there. You weren't even born at that time.
-3.
Yeah, I remember I was doing a club night in the West End, and we used to do club promotions. And I remember Audley coming down just after he won the gold medal. What is this, 20 odd years ago now? So, yeah, more. And it was. You know, he was flying high. Beeb signed him, and it, you know, for a lot of money, and it didn't quite go to plan. And they've never really looked at the sport since, which is obviously a shame, given the numbers it can do. You know, it's, you know, I always say, we call it a niche sport, but when boxing works, the UK stops for big fights. I might be exaggerating slightly with stops, but it's the talking point of many a household.
I think it did for Eubank Ben. I think that's fair to say. Everyone watched that.
100%. And, you know, that's an example, but I can, you know, give you loads of examples of where boxing's done that, you know. I think Fury Usyk, despite it wasn't two Brits, it was, you know, stopped. I remember when we did, you know, Groves, Froch 2, even here, dare I say, Hey Harrison, you know, I remember that. You know, that certainly stopped the country.
You know, Hey Harrison, right?
A few days afterwards as well. But yeah.
Right, just a quick one on Hey Harrison. That was the first ever fight I remember watching.
Really? Crikey, and you got into boxing after.
I know. So what was that, 2010?
I mean, it was a good finish. It was the fact that he said, down.
So I was 7, and that's my first memory of watching boxing. So I have no idea how I'm a boxing fan.
I went to my first boxing fight. I mean, I had boxers as babysitters, and my school holidays were around training camps and things like that. But my first actual fight, I think it was about 6 or 7 in Atlantic City, so similar times. But yeah, that's, you know, it's your first memories. My first memories of watching it and actually enjoying it was probably Eubank Ben, you know, or let's say the Eubank days. It was very much Eubank senior that I really enjoyed watching as a kid.
Yeah, mine probably Chisora Klitschko. That's the first one I remember actually being excited for. Just because spitting in the ring, slapping in the way in, and he's still here.
Well, I remember I remember obviously the aftermath of that one, yeah. And we were working with David at the time, and I just remember waking up on Sunday morning having about 40 missed calls from David and Adam, who had some issues, let's say, leaving the country of Germany after the fight, and lawyers were involved and all that. So that was my Sunday done. That was and we obviously went on and had the Hay Chisora fight. Yeah, at your old ground, yes. Upton Park. Yeah.
Last one before we talk about tomorrow night. You did briefly mention it there. Abass Baraou last weekend, interim world champion now. As someone who you've had since day one, really brilliant to see.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, it's just an amazing story, Abass. You know, first of all, you know, he was such an underdog. I think he was a 4-1 underdog going into the fight, a 1-4. You know, coming away with a win, but the way he did it as well, the last round, you know, definitely, you know, there's so many great rounds of the year contenders. So I'm going to say it's a must, but it's certainly up there with the rounds of the year I've seen. And the fact it was the last round, and the fact the storyline of, you know, that he's had a tough time Abass. He had the setback for when was it now, 5 years ago. We had the cool Kalle loss, which was really, he was sort of robbed on that one. But he's never stopped believing. He's left his own country to train abroad, left all his family, trained abroad, and lived abroad, moved abroad for this sport, and the way he's done it is phenomenal.
And you've got to say with Abass, from this time I've certainly spent around him, couldn't happen to a nicer bloke, really, could it? He's a great guy. Just
the most humble of people to be around, and the way he fights is he's never really in a bad fight, he's never in a bad fight. We've seen that over here as well. With the Egginton fight, he's also, by the way, he's never in a bad fight actually, but he did, if you tune into a fight of his, he's going to leave his heart and soul in that ring, and he's always sort of fighting forward his life in those fights. He digs deep, and it's what he had to do, and he's come up trumps against a Cuban who was bang on to win that fight, and now it's Charlo. I don't know whether Charlo can make the weight, so I do expect it to become a full world title. And then, there's some big fights to be made in that division.
Right, tomorrow night. I know it's your job.
That's the traditional part.
I know,
let's get wild on Misfits now. Let's get a bit funky here. Yeah. Right, okay.
All you haters turn off now, because...
let's start. I mean, it's not really the average Misfits night, is it? You've got a Hall of Fame sort of ex-UFC MMA guys up there, Tony Ferguson, Darren Till, Luke Rockhold, Dylan Dennis. I was sitting up there going, I'll be honest, I'm not really the biggest UFC guy. No. I haven't watched too much of it, but these are names that even I know, which is impressive. So I'm sort of going, wow, this is a bit different. It is a different sort of a fight night, So if you're a traditionalist, it's a bit more for you. It's got a bit of everything. And I said it at the press conference yesterday, but it's really the product of 3 shows going into one. So that's how we decided to do it with the Zone. We said instead of doing a smaller one over the summer and then going to a bigger one, we've sort of married up 3 events into one on this one. So it's cracking, and then you've got your Misfits guys on there as well. You've got Joey Essex now turning up on the scene. Yeah, I asked him yesterday where he lived, because someone told me he's South London, and he's not even from Essex, but he lives in Chigwell, yeah?
Yeah.
So he's one of your own, yeah? So there you go. Is he West Ham?
I don't think he's the biggest football fan, but yeah, he's originally from Bermondsey. Yeah. And then...
I say he's one of ours, he's London, yeah?
I didn't know that, and then...
But now he's one of yours, so, and Towie and all that, so...
Yeah, I actually went round his the other day to interview him in Chigwell.
Yeah.
Literally...
My first girlfriend was from Chigwell, there's a funny fact, yeah, many moons ago.
Literally backs on to Sheesh as well, so...
Okay.
So, yeah.
It's not really out of the way then, is it? It's not like a quiet farm in the middle of nowhere. He's banging the action. Good on him. I'll be doing the same thing at his age. I
also watched him spar. And it's going to be good. It's really going to be good tomorrow night with Joey.
Yeah, he's been, obviously completely different levels. I always even sparred Conor Benn. I mean, Adam Brooks told me he looks like he's really improved, and that is, by the way, what this whole thing is about. If you look at Salt Pappy, for example, he started off. I'll never forget the first time I saw him. I thought, this has got to be some sort of a wind-up. Yeah, it was like a very chubby-looking fella, and I'm thinking, like, this guy's never ever been near a ring before, and he's knocked the guy out in 20 seconds, and that was on the first Misfits card ever. That was the first one at the O2 in London, and Sonny Edwards has come up to me after and said, he's a ringer. He's definitely a ringer. That kid can box, and Sonny would know. And I've gone back and looked, and there is that little shimmy in there. And, he's definitely Filipino. He's clearly grown up around, definitely around boxing, and so. But he's he's fighting Tony Ferguson tomorrow. So he's a prime example of going through the sport. And I think Joey, I had a chat with him yesterday, and he's obviously training with Tony Sims. What's interesting? Sitting up there, I was thinking, is how the traditional world at the beginning was so anti, and you got all these people calling out. Now, we've got a first row tomorrow night. I'm saying first row, I don't know if they're all first row, but first couple of promoter rows. I mean, it's madness. There must be about 30 pro boxers that you all would have heard of. Tune in tomorrow night on DAZN and you'll see who. But it's the way it's now. This is not traditional boxing. This is a different form of entertainment. It is phenomenally fun to watch, and there are some madness storylines to it. But there's also a bit of serious boxing to it, and for me, I've always said the main thing is that we put on a platform that's safe. Boxing's unfortunately never completely safe, but the safest way possible. Make sure all that side's ticked, and have those controls in place. And the rest is really, stuff where people like Joey Essex can go and have a go at boxing and attract some eyeballs to the sport. And guess what? It brings in money. That money goes into pro gyms. That pro gym that helps the pros in those pro gyms that are starting out. It all filters down. You can look at it from a DAZN perspective. I think 2 years ago we were the highest grossing product on DAZN. And that obviously filters back into the whole business of DAZN, which supports, traditional boxing, and that is what I said at the beginning. What people are missing is it's about eyeballs to the sport, but it's also about actually the financial impact it has on young fighters starting out, and gyms and trainers, and so that's great to see.
You mentioned Sonny Edwards there. Bams Taylor said he'd make Sonny Edwards versus Tommy Robinson. That is just...
Yeah,
I'm lost for words. I don't need...
Yeah, I'll leave that part to Mams. What am I supposed to say to that? I'll deal with it when it lands on my desk, and I've got to go speak to DAZN about that.
That ain't even a question, by the way. That's just like...
Yeah, again, weight class. I guess you're going to ask me in a minute about Jake Paul, so I might as well ask myself the same question. But I mean Sonny as well. Sonny and Tommy Robinson. I don't know the weight difference, but I'm not quite sure how you do it. That's a part that you'll see the way Misfits is done. We're yes, of course, there's more catch weights, and there's a little bit of a different approach to it. But in general, we have. The strictest of guidelines to that. I don't know how that's possible. Yes, you can turn it into an exhibition, and leading on to Jake Paul, Gervonta Davis, which, again, great. We got loads of people on Netflix watching boxing. Now, it's been announced as an exhibition fight. So I can't really comment on who's going to win or lose because I don't know the rules, because it's an exhibition fight. When the rules come out, you can ask me the question who's going to win or lose. If it was traditional boxing rules, I don't see how Jake Paul has a shadow of a chance to beat, for me, one of the most talented boxers in the world, leaving all the hoo-ha outside the ring. Gervonta Davis is an unbelievable fighter. But there is that huge weight gap. I'll recall some of my very glorious, glamorous fighting career, but I do remember in my pitiful time as a very, 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 very bad boxer, being put in a ring with a pro. Now, that pro was, I think, something like a 12-19, so not exactly, Muhammad Ali I was facing, but I remember I just couldn't touch him. I just couldn't get anywhere near him. And this was, like I said, an average pro. I'm being kind there. He'll know who he is. And I just don't know how Jake, who's been doing this for 4 years now, 3-4 years, is going to get near a guy who's much lighter, much more skilled and trained than him. I mean, it's just, if he wants, he'll be making Jake Paul shadow box all night. So assuming there's something in this exhibition rules that they'll change. You know, I've got no idea how that will work. But will we all be watching? Absolutely.
What a world we live in when Jake Paul, Javonta Davis, Sonny Edwards and Tommy Robinson is mentioned in the same sentence, Kalle.
Yeah, and you could probably add a few more to that, but we won't talk about that now.
Right, just picking this back up with Kalle, just to confirm, nothing has been cut out of this interview. We are just changing over batteries there. Kalle, I want to talk about the main event. Darren Till, Luke Rockhold. At the launch press conference, they were like, okay, I know they had a bit of an intense face-off, but this week, certainly yesterday, carnage before the presser even started.
Well, let's not forget, all these guys up there have got a history, some sort of UFC history. So that, we talk about this as the main event, but then you've got Tony Ferguson, Saul Pappy, then you've got Dylan Dennis in the first MMA fight on Misfits against Warren Spencer. So but all these, UFC/MMA guys, they all know each other. So they've all got history, whether they fought each other, they train with each other, whatever. So the one thing I would say is, you can be sure that the beef yesterday, so we'll see these comments, oh, this is fixed, that's fixed. Well, I don't know. You come and have a look at the next one live and tell me that that's fixed. Yeah, no, Darren turned up yesterday. He was in a rage. He wanted to proper put it on him. So I don't know whether something happened in the background. I don't know whether they've got needles since years, but it was definitely different to the first presser. And I think that, it's going to be tasty. There's going to be a tasty. I'm not sure when this is going out, but it's going to be a tasty at the weigh-in. I'm pretty sure of that. My concern is always because these guys can obviously really fight, and when I say fight, not necessarily even punch, but wrestle is that that we got yesterday there was 6 guys holding back each guy. Is that someone's going to once pull a shoulder or pull something out, and because they're sitting there, they're not warmed up, and they're suddenly going into clinches with 6 guys, and you need 6 guys because Darren Till could go through 6 guys. It's 6 normal guys he goes through like that because they can, not even boxing wise, they wrestle and everything. So we've got to have that amount of security up there. But it's always my concern is that one day we're going to get some madness and we get a main event put out the night before or something. So touch wood, as this is being said before the weigh-in, whenever you're watching this. He's Darren is what he is. Come on, he says he does exactly what it says on the team. He brings absolute commotion, right? And that's he's got those quiet moments, and when he's got the quiet moments, it's going to erupt. And I've been heckled by Darren, right, sitting up there with Eubank Smith. He was in the crowd. I'll never forget it. Actually, Liam Smith's coming Saturday night.
I think he's already here, actually, in Manchester. Yeah.
Normally he's around Darren's crew as well. Same gym. Yeah. Again. He's alone. Darren is worth shooting in for.
Who is the opponent for Darren? Like the top of the tree. Who's the key target?
Well, I don't know what Luke Rockhold brings. He's a UFC champion, so I don't. Get past Saturday. Well, who could win a fight? Nate Diaz, obviously, well up there. Masvidal, another one. Then you go a bit left field. Carl Froch, Carl Froch.
I don't want that so bad.
Everyone wants. It's the one that everyone wants. And I think honestly, Carl's a nutter. I've promoted enough fights with Carl to know he is a nutter. He was always, sort of the nemesis because, whether I had Kessler, Groves, Abraham. So I've had 5, 6, 7 events with Carl, and Carl is full on. Carl, again, like I just said about Darren, he does exactly what it says on the fucking tin, right? So with Carl Froch, Darren Till, that is a massive fight. But outside of that, of course, Nate Diaz, massive. Nate Diaz, Masvidal, yeah.
Is there any possibility of resurrecting the Tommy Fury fight?
We've tried. I don't. It's not like it's a pay-per-view, so the money is what it is. It's what it does ultimately on a night. I don't think it's a money thing. I think it is a case of, Tommy wanting to do the fight. The fight's always going to be there. We were in touch last week about the fight. Apparently it's still definitely not on the radar. I could see Misfits doing something else with Tommy. I think, by the way, all those opponents I just said would also be opponents, for Tommy. But at the same time, I think that the biggest Tommy Fury fight I can see, other than a KSI or a Jake Paul rematch, is Darren Till.
Are we going to see KSI and the Misfits ring again? Do you believe?
Yeah, I mean, I think he looks for the big. He said to Danny he don't want to fight him. I think he looks always for that sort of massive night, And I think it takes a fight being possible with a Conor McGregor, with a Jake Paul, that sort of level, I know there's other names being bandied around at the moment. I'm not going to say any of them, but that's what I think is what it takes. Ultimately, he sort of ticked that box of having those big nights in the crossover scene. But it's at that stage normally it's always about some massive things, and those things are there. So do I think they can happen? Yeah.
Last one. I know people, traditionalists will say Misfits, crossover, influencers, but one fight that definitely isn't that is Ty Mitchell versus Sean Hemphill. People will know Sean Hemphill, big boxing fans, for beating Mark Jeffers, who Mark Jeffers was seen as the bogeyman of the division, and Ty Mitchell going in there as a 4-1 underdog. It's an unbelievable fight.
Yeah, I mean, Ty Mitchell, this has gone a bit under the radar. What is there, 14 fights on Saturday night, and our first ever MMA fight. So it's gone a little under the radar, which is cool. That's fine. It can happen on big shows, and you want to be part of big shows and get that experience. But Ty Mitchell, in his next fight, I would like to see him fight a Liam Cameron, maybe the winner of the Lyndon Arthur fight now. That's a good fight, by the way.
Great fight.
That's a good fight as well. But those sort of fights, because he's not a spring chicken, but I believe he's a very talented kid, and I hope I'm allowed to, or I hope I'm qualified enough to say this now, is you look at the Idris Virgo fight, and people will say, oh, Idris Virgo. Now, Idris Virgo came up to crossover boxing, but Idris Virgo actually was a when I say a decent pro, very awkward, horrible to watch, but quite an effective pro, undefeated. Yeah? So he wasn't a crossover boxer ever. He was in the scene, but he came from being a pro who'd been around, and he dismantled him totally. This is a guy who has got quite a lot of experience, has trained in a very good gym, training alongside Derek Chisora and at Shoot Fighters. So he's but it's just, it wasn't like it was, we beat him well on points. He absolutely dismantled him, and very, very quickly in a couple of rounds. So that shocked me. Not that he won, but the speed and the way he did it. And I've known Ty Mitchell, many years, and had the opportunity years ago. There was obviously lots of other issues going on at the time. It wasn't possible, and he's now at a stage of his life, his career, where he hasn't got much time to mess around. So he's going to have to go face fire with fire, and he's up for it, man. He's up for it. So yeah, but again, let's toast that if he can complete what is seen as going to be a major upset if he can win Saturday night. I don't know how they put those odds on it because it's a cracking bet. I mean, you know, I think he's going to do a number on this kid. But hey ho, I've been wrong before.
We shall find out tomorrow. We're not too long away from the weigh-in. It's going to be carnage.
Yes.
Kalle, is there anything else you'd like to add before we finish?
Tune into the Zone Saturday night for a spectacle night from the Fight City of Manchester, live and exclusive on the Zone.
Kalle Sauerland, thank you very much.